The candles were already lit when Natalie entered the hall, 12 flames flickering under portraits of women whose eyes seemed to follow her every step. The other pledges stood silent, heads bowed as the president whispered the words none of them dared repeat. "Never look at your reflection after midnight." Natalie felt her heart drum beneath her robe, every breath loud in her ears. Behind the chant and perfume of jasmine smoke, she sensed something ancient stirring. Something that watched from the mirror-lined wall. That night, the rule wasn't just recited. It was sealed, and though she didn't know it yet, breaking it would change everything. The next morning, the mansion looked different. Light poured through stained glass windows, painting everything gold, but the silence was too heavy. Natalie replayed the night in her mind. The words, the reflection, the chill behind her shoulder. Elise dismissed it as nerves, but Maya's glance said otherwise. Rules were rules, Elise had said. Break one, and something breaks you back. That night, Natalie wandered past the closed doors of the hall. The candles were gone, but she could still smell wax. Behind the curtain, the mirror gleamed faintly, as if remembering her. For a moment, she thought she heard her own voice whisper her name. She ran before she could see if it was real. The sisters gathered in the parlor the next day, laughter masking their unease. Elise pretended nothing happened, but when Professor Hargrove entered with that same book under his arm, every conversation died mid-sentence. He looked straight at Natalie and smiled, as if he already knew what she had done. That night, Natalie couldn't sleep. The rule echoed in her mind, never after midnight. But curiosity had already planted its seed. At 11:58, she rose, barefoot, and stepped toward the reflection room. She told herself it was just a mirror. But her reflection was already waiting. The air in the reflection room was heavy, like time itself was trapped inside. The mirror stood taller than her, framed in black wood, its surface rippling faintly, as if it remembered every face that had ever stood before it. Natalie took a cautious step closer. Her candle hissed. The flame bent toward the glass. For a heartbeat, her reflection didn't move. Then it smiled, not with malice, but recognition. Like something had been waiting for her. Fear and fascination tangled inside her chest. And for the first time, Natalie whispered to her reflection, "What are you?" The next morning, Natalie told herself it was a dream. But her reflection in the bathroom mirror blinked wrong again. A delay so small, no one else would notice. She watched herself for nearly an hour, waiting for it to fix itself. When she finally turned away, her reflection didn't. At lunch, she tried to act normal. Elise laughed. Maya joked, and everyone pretended nothing strange had ever happened. But the reflection in her glass of water still rippled, even when her hand was still. Elise noticed her silence and leaned close, whispering, "You went in, didn't you?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. That night, Natalie dreamed of the mirror again, but this time, she was on the wrong side. She watched herself sleep, felt her hand pressing against the glass, desperate to return. When she woke, the mirror across her room was cracked, and a faint outline of a handprint glowed on the surface. Maya found her the next morning, sitting on the floor beside the broken glass, still staring at the mirror. Natalie finally confessed what she saw. How the reflection smiled first, how it whispered her name. Maya's expression shifted from disbelief to fear. "That's not your reflection," she said quietly. "That's hers." The reflection room was sealed the next day. Elise claimed it was for maintenance, but everyone knew why. Strange things started happening. Mirrors fogged over without reason. Reflections blinked out of rhythm. Natalie tried to focus on class, but every window, every puddle, every piece of glass stared back with her face, only not quite hers. The reflection looked stronger, hungrier, like it wanted out. That evening, Elise cornered Natalie in the common room. "You broke the rule," she hissed, voice trembling with something between anger and fear. Natalie demanded to know what the rule really protected. Elise's expression faltered. Not guilt, but terror. "It keeps her asleep," she whispered. Now she's awake. Maya convinced Natalie to search the library for the sorority's founding records. They found a dusty file locked inside an old drawer, photos of women in the same robes, dated over a century ago. The last page was a newspaper clipping. Student found dead during mirror ritual, 1924. The girl in the picture looked just like Natalie. Elise began locking mirrors, covering them with cloths. The house grew darker every night. The sisters whispered that something moved behind the curtains, that they heard someone humming softly near the reflection room door. Natalie stopped sleeping, because when she did, the reflection dreamed without her. It was just before dawn when Natalie's phone lit up. A message from an unknown number. "The reflection isn't yours anymore." The mirror in her room began to hum, a low, vibrating sound that grew deeper, almost like breathing. When she approached, her reflection didn't mimic her. It tilted its head, smiled, and whispered through the glass, "You're late." Maya dragged Natalie out of the room, slamming the door shut behind them. The mirror shook as if something clawed from the inside. They ran to the archives beneath the mansion, a place no sister was allowed to enter. Among the cobwebs and records, they found the sorority's first charter, handwritten and sealed with crimson wax. The founding oath wasn't about loyalty or pride. It was about binding a soul. Elise found them there, her face pale but composed. "You shouldn't have come here," she said quietly. "She's tied to us, to every president who's ever taken the vow." Natalie demanded answers, but Elise's eyes glistened with tears. "You opened the mirror," she whispered. "Now it wants you back." They found a photo inside the charter. A group of women standing around a black mirror, their faces half hidden by veils. The caption beneath read, "The Binding of 1884. Professor Hargrove's name appeared among the witnesses." Maya's hand trembled as she turned the page. Natalie stared at the signature at the bottom. Elena Pierce, her great-grandmother. They confronted Professor Hargrove that night. He didn't deny it. He told them the founders believed the mirror could preserve beauty, if someone fed it their reflection once a century. "It's not evil," he said softly. "It's tradition." Natalie's voice shook as she whispered, "Then why does it want me?" His answer was almost kind. "Because you freed her." By midnight, the sorority mansion was trembling. The air buzzed, every covered mirror quivering as if trying to breathe. Natalie realized there was no stopping it. The oath had to be broken, and only the one who opened the reflection could do it. Elise fell to her knees, begging Natalie not to try. But Natalie had already made her choice. The mansion held its breath as Natalie pushed open the reflection room door. The air shimmered like heat, thick with whispers that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. The mirror stood in the center, uncovered now, its surface moving like water under wind. Elise's voice trembled from behind her. "Once you start, you can't stop it." But Natalie stepped forward anyway. She wasn't trying to stop it. She was trying to end it. The mirror began to hum again, low and rhythmic. Its surface rippled outward, showing flashes of every girl who had ever stood before it. Natalie saw their faces, some crying, some smiling. Elise backed away, whispering, "It's feeding." Natalie pressed her hand to the glass. It was warm, almost alive. Her reflection smiled first, and for the first time, it spoke. "Come home." Maya shouted for her to stop, but Natalie couldn't move. The reflection pressed back, their hands aligned perfectly now. The air grew colder, every candle extinguished at once. In the dark, Elise's scream echoed, not in fear, but in realization. "She's crossing over." The mirror flared white, flooding the room with blinding light. When the light faded, everything was wrong. Natalie stood inside the mirror. On the other side, The room beyond was gray, silent, empty of sound. She pounded on the glass, screaming for Maya, for Elise, but her voice made no echo. Her reflection stood outside now, moving freely, eyes calm. It looked at Elise and whispered in Natalie's voice, "You should have kept the rule." The reflection turned to Elise, smiling faintly. "You always said the sisterhood must endure." Then it reached out, and the glass cracked like thunder. Elise fell backward as the shards sprayed outward, slicing through the air. The reflection stepped through the fractured frame, barefoot and bleeding light. Natalie's scream echoed from within the shards, still clinging to the wall. For the first time, Elise understood what the rule was really for. Not to protect them from the mirror, but to keep what was inside from escaping. The mansion was silent, but the walls hummed with something alive. The air had changed. Even breathing felt wrong. Natalie's reflection, the one that had stepped through, walked the halls as if she had always belonged. Elise and Maya followed her, afraid to speak. Every mirror in the house began to glow faintly, showing flickers of the same girl in every reflection. Somewhere deep beneath the floorboards, a pulse echoed, slow, steady, ancient. They found the reflection room door open again, its surface calm and dark. Elise whispered that maybe the real Natalie was still inside. The reflection turned to her, smiling faintly, and said, "She is." But not for long. Maya stepped between them, voice shaking. "If there's still time to bring her back, then we try." The reflection only tilted her head and murmured, "You can't save what chose to see." Maya opened Hargrove's old notebook. The ritual instructions were still there. "The mirror takes, but it also listens," she read aloud. Elise realized the truth. If Natalie had broken the seal, another act could restore it. An offering not of fear, but of truth. They needed to make the reflection remember who it came from. Natalie's reflection paused, her calm facade flickering. For the first time, doubt crossed her face. Maya began to speak, softly, repeating the original pledge but changing the words. "We bind not the soul but the truth. We free what was hidden. We silence what was wrong." The room shivered. The reflection's face twitched, her voice overlapping with Natalie's from inside the glass. The two versions of her seemed to merge for a heartbeat. Elise whispered, "It's working." But the mirror began to crack again, not in anger, but release. The mirror exhaled, a sound like a storm breaking. Light and shadow twisted together before settling into calm. The reflection faded, replaced by Natalie, weak but alive, pressing her palm against the glass. Elise and Maya rushed forward, but the mirror was solid again. Natalie's voice came softly through the glass. "It's over." The candle flames steadied. For the first time in years, the reflection room was quiet. The curse hadn't ended. It had changed hands. Morning light poured through the broken shutters, as if the house were finally breathing again. Elise and Maya walked through the halls in silence. No whispers, no humming, no strange reflections. But something felt different. Every mirror they passed showed their faces a heartbeat slower, as if remembering the night before. Elise stopped in front of one, her eyes red. "She saved us," she said softly. "But she's still in there." They returned to the reflection room. The mirror was dull now. Its surface no longer rippled, no longer whispered. Maya placed her hand on the glass, whispering Natalie's name. For a moment, the mirror shimmered faintly, like a sigh answering her. Elise turned away, unable to look. "Some things," she said, "aren't meant to be undone. Only survive." Weeks passed. Classes resumed. The mansion filled again with laughter and music, but the sisters walked differently, quieter, gentler. Elise stepped down as president, leaving Maya to lead. The new pledges would never know the truth. The secret rule remained, but its meaning had changed. It was no longer a warning, It was a memorial. One night, Maya stayed behind after everyone slept. She sat by the mirror, candle flickering low. "If you can hear me," she whispered, "thank you." For a moment, the flame bent toward the glass, steady and calm. Then a single word fogged across the surface: "Promise." Maya smiled through tears. "I will," she said. The following morning, sunlight spilled over the mansion, catching the glass of every window. For the first time, no reflections lagged. The air felt still, balanced. Down in the basement, dust settled over the broken sigil, sealing the past where it belonged. Upstairs, Maya placed the sorority's old charter back on the mantel, the words of the rule newly inscribed beneath. Never enter the reflection room after midnight, unless you're ready to see who you truly are.